and welcome to my YouTube channel. Today we're going to be talking about history, dissecting why I have a deep-seated fear of cannibals. Just kidding. I mean, we're going to be doing that in the second half, but it will come up. Yeah, like it's too much probably. It'll come up a lot. We'll be talking about the most nightmarish, uncomfortable, terrifying, hungry, and just generally monstrous figure from history that I or even anybody else can think of, because I really only can truly describe one guy, and that is Tarrare. A lot of you guys on TikTok have asked me to talk about Tarrare. I haven't talked about him purely because I just think there's way too much to unpack about him, and I don't want to try and squeeze it into multiple parts. I think that shit is annoying, and so we're going to be breaking it down fully here today. To my deep discomfort, God, talk about Tarrare, who I hate him. I gotta get that out here up front. I hate him. He makes me so uncomfortable. He's the fucking worst. But I will be talking about him for you guys. Plus, he is very objectively interesting. I just hate him for personal reasons. I fucking hate them because they do something, trigger warning, it's cannibalism, that just, I have like a phobia of. I mean, who isn't afraid of being eaten? I guess it depends heavily on the context. Anyway, the point is, though, I have like a disproportionate like reaction to cannibalistic shit. And this story specifically, I'm just like, God, why? Like, he's the stuff of fucking nightmares. And more than that, at the end, I'll be telling a personal anecdote of the exact moment that I went from having a healthy fear of cannibalism to having a literal phobia. So stay tuned, because it's a wild ride. Tarrare is a man who was born in France with a very rare medical condition that made it so that he was always hungry. Every time I think about Tarrare, I go, I want to die. A lot of weird things about Tarrare before we even get into like the weird choices he's made in his life. Just like him as a person is very unique. So first of all, he was always hungry all the time, right? And by the time he was like a teenager, he was eating like insane amounts of food. Tarrare always being hungry was like a real problem, because it wasn't the case where he was always super hungry because he became super obese from being so hungry all the time and he had to maintain that lifestyle. He was actually only 100 pounds. I'm not sure how tall he was, but still at most heights, like 100 pounds is pretty slim. And from what I know of Tarrare, he wasn't like a little person or anything like that. So I'm assuming he was probably of average height for his time in the 1700s. Beyond that, visually, he had some weird stuff going on that immediately made you be like, what's up? So his mouth, and this like, it's so cartoonish. Tarrare is so cartoonish. Like, I'm telling you, he really is the stuff of nightmares, because he like, his mouth was like stretched out, like almost like, you know when squirrels or hamsters put a bunch of shit in their mouth? Like, he could do that. He could put like dozens of eggs in there, because it was just so like I think I have a pretty stretchy mouth, to be completely honest with you. But like, this is pretty much me at max capacity. And I am nowhere near close to even fitting one egg in each cheek. Anyway, the point is, now we know how stretchy my mouth is. Tarrare had like this huge mouth, and I think he even had extra teeth, like more than 32 teeth, although I'm not 100% sure. It just seems like to combat the size of his like very immense jaw that makes sense. But he did have notably like horribly stained teeth, which is probably due to him having overactive like pH in his stomach. I would assume he probably had crazy acid reflux with how hungry he was all the time, but I'm not sure that there's actual evidence to that. That's just what my guess would be about his teeth situation. But it actually doesn't stop there though. Like, so when I eat, I get a noticeable food baby. Like, I'm a real bloater, but I don't know why I said that like a flex. I'm a real bloater. But I do get a food baby, like, and if I drink a bunch of water, I get a very visible food baby. I guess I got a stretchy stomach like that, but nowhere close to what Tarrare had going on, because he would get like a huge bulge, but because his stomach was so abnormal, like me, when my food baby's gone, my stomach pretty much just rescinds like back to normal, you know? But his was like, it would like deflate because it would get so big. He had all this extra skin, almost like after you had just given birth to like an insanely large child, or like quadruplets or something like that. And so it would deflate like a balloon. And so beyond the fact that like he looked insane and also was strange because he was constantly eating, like he could eat, by the time he was like a teenager, he could eat like a fourth of a cow. So he was constantly eating all the time, had this crazy either hugely engorged stomach or balloon stomach, the weird scary mouth, but on top of that he smelled so fucking bad, which this is like he was a peasant in France in like the 1700s, and they still were like, this bitch here smells so goddamn bad that we cannot stand being around him. Like, he needs to get the fuck away from us. Like, people were like, you know when something's so terrible you're pissed? That's pretty much how people were about Tarrare. So with all that weird shit about Tarrare going on, his parents were like, 1, we cannot afford that. Like, you are quite literally eating us out of house and home. 2, you smell fucking terrible no matter what we do. And 3, generally, you know, if you went down to get water in the middle of the fucking night and you saw Tarrare, I think you'd be upset as well. So they kicked him out of the house, and he became a petty criminal for a while, as one does when they're homeless in 17th century France. For a while, he was just basically begging and stealing and fucking eating anything that he could, before eventually he figured out like, hey, I'm weird as hell. I can be a street performer. And people were like, yeah, we love that. Because you are weird as hell. You actually found your calling. That's exactly what you should be doing. You're so weird. So yeah, people would basically just get a bunch of random food and shit and scraps, like a bunch of oranges or whatever they could get their hands on. They'd be like, yo, can you eat this? And his answer was always, yeah. And then he would eat it and people would be like, amazing. One time though, like it didn't go well apparently, and he had to go to the hospital and they had to give him laxatives, which sounds terrible. Eventually he enlisted in the military, which I mean pretty much everybody was doing at that time, so that's not that weird or anything. But when I think of military food rations, I don't specifically, and I have nothing to base this off of, this is just my assumption, I don't specifically think of them as being like, oh yeah, you're getting hella food. And so it was obviously a huge problem. Tarrare, he was eating trash, like he was going through like the garbage, trying to satiate his hunger. I'm pretty sure they gave him second, thirds, whatever the hell he needed within the realm of reason, but it still was never enough. I mean, he was constantly hungry, so he was just eating trash, he was doing whatever he could do to survive, but even still, it just genuinely wasn't enough food, and he ended up having to go to the hospital because he was kind of starving to death. It was a Swiss hospital, and when he went there, they were all like, this guy's got some crazy shit going on. His face is crazy, his jaw unhinges like a snake, and he never stops eating. What the fuck? We gotta run experiments on this guy because I've never seen anything like this. I doubt we'll see it again. He might be a real life monster. Basically, kind of like the people on the street who were just feeding Tarrare random shit, the people at the hospital were like, I guess we'll see where this goes. And so first they gave him like a huge, think like a giant Thanksgiving meal for like you and all your family. And naturally he just ate the shit out of that, and they were like, okay. Then they gave him a raw eel, which apparently he bit its fucking skull, like crushed its skull with his mouth, like, and then just fucking went, just like slurped that bitch down, cause why not, right? They also gave him a live cat and he ripped it in half and literally just like, you know when you're a child and you bite into a gusher and then the juice is in there and you want to see if you can just get the juice? He pretty much did that to a cat and then ripped all the meat off its bones and ate that, but he kept the hair, and then he burped up a fur ball later. I fucking hate Tarrare. I'm so I hate him. Basically, the conclusions of this very scientific study was, yeah, this guy's the stuff of nightmares. He just fucking eats a lot. I don't know, he's weird, we hate him, he's terrible, it's disgusting, it's awful, basically. And they were like, can the military take him back? And they were like, yeah. And then they were like, so he's got a real eating problem though. Obviously you guys know that, but I'm just saying it's fucked up. It's fucked up. Like scientifically, it's fucked up. And then the military was like, I bet we could get this guy, because he can just swallow anything, to swallow wooden boxes with notes in them. So we could smuggle notes through his insane, stretchy stomach. And that worked. Yeah, they just bribed him with weird fucking massive assortments of food, and he was happy to do it. Oh yeah, basically the plan was like, let's make Tarrare 007. He can sneak in places, he can shit out our messages, it'll be so secretive, it's amazing. It wasn't. It wasn't either of those things. It wasn't amazing. It definitely wasn't secretive. Tarrare is the most memorable bitch in the fucking world at this time. Like, first of all, who else's jaw can drop down to their kneecaps? Secondly, who will eat everything in sight other than Tarrare? Thirdly, who's got the scariest jowls? You get the point. The point is, obviously, people saw him and were like, immediately like, hey, what's up with that guy? Not even thinking he was necessarily a spy, but then, you know, they're gonna eventually piece that shit together. So yeah, he was arrested, he snitched, and they ended up just chaining him to a toilet, waiting for him to shit this message out, and then they were like, this message is boring, we're just gonna punish you publicly, then you can go. And yeah, they just beat the shit out of him and sent him on his way. So this is the point in the story where things take a turn for the even more terrible. Naturally, it's been terrible the whole time, but let's just get into the shit, shall we? So Tarrare went back to the Swiss hospital and was like, please cure me, I am so fucked up. And they were like, yeah, we're not sure that this is within the realm of curable, but we'll go ahead and try for sure. It's at least something interesting to do. A change of pace, really. So yeah, Tarrare went back. He was still doing crazy shit because, again, like, there's just no way to satisfy this guy's hunger no matter what. Even though they knew at the hospital he needed to eat hella food, it was still just never enough for him. So yeah, he would sneak out, he would eat the trash, he would eat any food scraps he could find, he would steal food from other people. It's even been said that he would go behind the butcher shop, like the local butcher around the corner or whatever, and like eat the leftovers in those trash cans and fight stray dogs. Like the monster he is, just an animal. Then when people were doing like fucking bloodletting, which was big in this era, he would just be like, don't leak your blood into a bucket, leak it into my mouth. And yeah, he fucking tried to eat people in the morgue. He's just the worst. You thought when I said a second ago, let's get into the shit, that what I was just saying was the shit. Think again, because that's not the shit. The shit that Tarrare is known for is eating a baby, which is insane considering everything else he's got going on. The fact that on the list of things about you, baby eating doesn't just jump from the page. Like, yes, it's bad, clearly. It's terrible, but I'm just saying, in other context situations, eating a baby would be much more jarring because most people only do a few atrocious things, and Tarrare is only terrible in every way. So at the hospital, they obviously knew he was a real fucking pain in the ass, but again, Tarrare is a once in a lifetime kind of guy, so they were willing for him to just be the worst. Because they were like, he's a great case study, basically. Like, maybe if we can fix this guy, we've really come a long way medically. You know what I'm saying? Plus, it's just interesting. It's a change of pace. But yeah, so even though he was trying to eat cadavers and was fighting with dogs with his bare teeth, and the fact that he just crushed that eel's skull in his mouth, which, like, eel skulls are pretty, you know? Everybody was like, okay, we'll let that slide, I guess. But then when the 14th-month-old baby disappeared, it started to get pretty tense in there for Tarrare, I'm not gonna lie. They were like, did you eat this fucking baby, you fucking monster? Which, first of all, he's been a monster the whole time. I would just like to point that out. He's been terrifying the whole time. But obviously this is way worse. You can't just eat babies. So he denied it. He's like, I didn't eat the baby, but he obviously ate the baby. Like, only an idiot would think Tarrare did not eat that baby after he was already trying to eat half the dead bodies in the hospital, almost all the medical biological waste and the trash, and was fighting dogs with his bare teeth in the alleys. He clearly ate that baby, so they're not dumb. They kicked him out of the hospital. They're like, get the fuck out of here, you baby eater. You're the stuff of nightmares. You might even be a demon. So Tarrare is gone from the hospital for about 4 years, and then he comes back because he's basically dying of like extreme tuberculosis, which who knows how he got that? I've got a few ideas, but the point is he died like 2 seconds after he came back to the hospital because it was like very advanced tuberculosis. And so they were like, obviously, we've got to look inside Tarrare and see what his fucking deal is, because there's no way he's normal on the inside. So before they even start cutting, they just like were looking in his mouth because like, duh, he had this crazy situation going on. And they looked in and then they were like, oh my God, you can just see into his stomach, his mouth. Instead of him having like an esophagus, like roughly like this big, going all the way down, snaked along, getting into the organs, it was just a giant bucket from mouth to stomach in essence. And they were like, what the fuck, Tarrare? So like obviously his whole throat to abdomen region was just like crazy deformed for that to be the case, but like still that would just be deeply disconcerting. And that does explain why his teeth were so fucked up. Jump too hard if you're Tarrare and suddenly you've got a vat of stomach acid all over your pearly browns. Fucking hate that. And then when they actually went in there and started looking around, they found out that, whoa, like literally the vast majority of his organ system is purely devoted to food, and like a tiny amount to like everything else that's keeping this man running, which pretty much explains everything. I don't think since Tarrare there has been another case like his. If there has been, it's been nowhere near as extreme from what I could see. So he really is a pretty unique circumstance. And God, I just hate that. I hate it. The thing is with cannibals is I hate the idea already, who doesn't, of being like prey to like a predator, like somebody stalking you to do something fucked up to you. I don't think anybody likes that. But for me, I can't help but think of a cannibal going people watching, and it's like they're at the grocery store, pinching my cheeks to see, is this avocado too firm? Like, this banana's got some spots. Like, I don't know why that just makes, like the concept of being consumed, I have like a complex about that. I just hate it way more. If someone's gonna murder me, just murder me and get it done with. Don't, please, I'm putting it out there now. Please do not eat me after. That is my one wish. If you're gonna do something fucking terrible to me and like end my shit, I know I'm dead. I know I'm not there to see it anyway. I don't care. I don't wanna be eaten at all. It was 2014, Houston, Texas. This is how you know it's traumatic. I've got the time and the date and the location. And I was in acting school at the time, and we had this like class where we were supposed to do set building, and we were standing around waiting to get our tools, you know, because we had to do like woodworking stuff. Like we were building stairs that day, I think. And somehow the topic of cannibalism came up, and this one girl who will remain anonymous, if you're seeing this, you know it's you know that I'm talking about you, and I want you to know I've never forgotten this. It's fucked me up for years. Anyway, so she goes, oh, we're talking about cannibalism? I've got a story about cannibalism. For the record, this didn't happen to me, it happened to my cousin. So I'll be telling this story from her perspective, because saying my friend's cousin over and over again is gonna get old. End scene. This happened to my cousin. She went down for spring break in Florida and she was bar hopping with her friends, and they had the rule, you know, we come together, we leave together. You meet somebody that you want to have like a thing with, you better meet up with them later. You're not going home with anybody from the bar, basically, which is a good rule. Everyone should follow that rule just for pure safety reasons. And this story especially will tell you why. It's foreshadowing. She gets drunk and she meets this guy who like she's making out with on the dance floor. She's like, he's a total hottie, please. I don't know why I made her a surfer. He's a total hottie, please let me go home with him. Please guys, please, it'll be gnarly. Sorry, the joke's dead. Anyway, she's like, please, like it'll be sick. Let me go home with this guy. And her friends are all like, come together, leave together. As long as you come back to the house and you have a little time to sober up, we'll drop you off, whatever. You're not just like going to some guy's house, basically. And she was like, you guys fucking suck, you're not my mom, but okay. And so she tells the guy, and he's real pushy about it, which should have been a red flag, but she was drinking. He's real pushy about it, where he's like, oh, fuck your friends. Like, not all fuck your friends, like, oh, fuck your friends. Anyway. He's like, screw them, like they're just jealous, come on, like you don't have to listen to them, please come back with me, come back with me, come back with me. That's just how I'm picturing it. But she didn't pick up on this crazy energy. Then later they're texting and he's like, oh, please come back to my place. And she's like, okay, I'm coming right now, I'm gonna sneak out, take an Uber. Which, don't do that. Tell your friends if you're going somewhere. It's a real fucking safety concern. Keep your location on, like, you know, just, it's not your fault when bad things happen at all, but because there's fucked up people in this world, just doing a couple little things like that, like letting people know where you are and stuff, it can go a long way. She goes to this guy's house and like, he like opens the door and his whole place is like dark. And he's like, come on, let's go straight to my room. And she's like, okay. Which I'm standing listening to this story, by the way, in shop class, like, she goes in, they're like on the bed, they like they hook up and it's like terrible, apparently, and then he just immediately passes the fuck out. So I guess she laid it down. She goes like, this is weird. Like, I'm not trying to like snuggle with this guy. My friends are gonna be like worried about me. So she sneaks out and calls an Uber and goes home. She like just walks out in the dark, you know. I think she said she like tripped even. She was scared he was gonna wake up, and then she was like, okay, cool, you know. And then she got out of there. Fast forward like 3 months later, she goes to the dentist because she's got like some sort of abscess, like something's fucked up in like her gum line, where she's like worried about it. I'm not convinced it's an abscess. If I know it's gonna be in the comments, like this story would be impossible because abscess, I'm not a dental person. I don't fucking know. And also I don't have proof that this story is real. This is just what I was told. Anyway, he goes and like her dentist gets real weird about it real fast. He's looking in her mouth like, I'll be right back. And then he leaves, he comes back a few times like dentists do, but he's got a weird energy. And he's like, so, I have to ask you a question. We've called the police, I have to ask you a question, I want you to be honest. Have you eaten a person recently? Is there any way that you could have consumed flesh that isn't yours? Like maybe you bit someone's lip when you're hooking up or something? Like, is there any way we can excuse this? Like, but I do have a responsibility to call the police, so they are gonna wanna talk to you. And she's freaking out like, what the fuck? And what does this have to do with my mouth and the dentist right now? And he's like, you have a very specific type of infection that is usually only seen in people who have consumed human flesh. So either you ate someone, like have flesh in your mouth that's not yours and it got stuck in your gum line, it caused this infection, or somehow you would have come in contact with it. He's seen how freaked out she is, and like I think he's been her family dentist for forever, so he's like, okay, have you like made out with anybody? Like any way you could have exchanged fluids with somebody who has eaten somebody? Like any casual hookups recently? And then she's like, well actually, like I know this is a few months ago, but spring break I hooked up with this guy, and like it has kind of like been hurting for like a while, so I didn't really associate the two. Like maybe it has something to do with that. Like, do you have his phone number? Because remember the police came and she was like, yeah, I have his phone number. She gave his information. So apparently they go ahead, they investigate, and when they get to this guy's house, his house is like full of like bodies that have been partially eaten. The reason why he like brought her in the dark was because what this guy does, like he's like a predator obviously, is he would go out to bars, find drunk girls, bring them back home, hook up with them, and then eat them afterwards. And so there were all of these girls who were like partially eaten, and that's why he brought her in the dark, and like she was so drunk she didn't notice like the terrible smell, I guess. And when she tripped on the way out, she actually tripped over like a person, because in the room that they were banging, there were dead people on the ground. She just couldn't see them because it was so fucking dark in there. And she testified against him, and he's in prison now. But I don't have any idea if that girl from acting school is a compulsive liar and that was just a very detailed narrative that she pushed, or if that really happened. But irregardless, scarred me for life. I've been worried about it ever since. Anyway, thank you guys for coming to my YouTube channel today. I will definitely be forwarding this video to my therapist because we haven't even touched on the whole cannibal thing, and I'm sure that that's a fat check for her. So, thank you guys so much for coming. As always, if you don't know me from TikTok already, check me out on TikTok. Here's my TikTok handle at DaisyFoko. Here's my Instagram at DaysFoko. It's Daisy without the Y, and I'll see you guys next time.